But when you're praying, if you have anything against someone, you got to forgive that person so that your Father in heaven will also forgive you. And we talked about how we learned from the model prayer as children. We call it the Lord's Prayer. But in that prayer, we say, forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We learned that prayer as children. And as I lifted last week, you don't think much of it. Kind of gloss over what you're saying, but you're asking God to use the same criteria, use the same scrutiny, use the same conditions toward me when I need forgiveness that I use toward other people. Forgive us as we forgive those. And then Jesus kind of underpinned it with this parable of this, what is called the parable of the unforgiving servant, the servant that had a great debt and an incalculable debt, what debt that he could never in his lifetime be able to satisfy. And so he goes to his master, and he just falls down and asks for mercy. And so the master forgave him of all the debt. Just forgave him. And so he left the presence of his master, and the text says that he went and came across a fellow servant, one of his equals, who owed him something. And man, he just went in on this guy. He grabbed him by the throat, choking the man, demanding to be paid, and then threw the man and had him arrested and put in jail. So word got back to the master of what he had done. And so he sent for him again. He called him wicked because he had been forgiven, but he couldn't forgive. And it's likened to people who have short memories. What I call it convenient amnesia. When they need forgiveness, then all of a sudden, they're just pleading and, weeping and wailing, weeping in Rama when they need forgiveness. But then when it comes time to forgive someone else, then they can't find the capacity. And oftentimes, what they can't forgive other people for is far less than what they've been forgiven for. And some of that stuff that don't nobody know you've been forgiven for. Yeah. Because we often brush off our sins as little sins. And we forget that some of the more severe sin is the ones that we don't consider as such. A lot of those are sins of the spirit are different than sins of the flesh. Sins of the flesh, stealing, drunkenness, sexual sins waist down. We think that's just that's just horrible. But jealousy and covetousness and envy and unforgiveness, those things are harder to acknowledge, and they're harder to be freed from because they're typically excused and rationalized. So that was last week. the being unforgiving. Today I want to talk about revenge. Last week we talked about forgiveness. If you don't give it, you don't get it. And today it's in the book, chapter 12 of the book is talking about revenge, the trap. And Paul lifts up a text in Romans 12:17. It says, recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. So in the previous chapter, again, we learned that holding on, last Sunday, rather, and the previous chapter, we learned that holding on to an offense of unforgiveness is like holding a debt against someone. And when we are wronged by someone, we believe that a debt is owed to us. If you wrong me, then you owe me. Payment of some sort is expected, whether it be monetary or not. We want to get paid when we've been wronged. And we see the earthly example that is in our legal system, in the judicial system, our court system. When we're wronged individuals and injured people, they are avenged in court. That's what the courts do. They avenge those who have been injured or wronged. Human justice says you stand trial for what you've done and pay dearly if you found guilty. That's human justice. And that's the way of the world. But the Bible gives us a way of righteousness. Because in Romans, the same chapter, in the 12th chapter, in verse 19, it says, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, said the Lord. And to avenge ourselves is a very unrighteous act. But that's exactly what we are seeking. And that's exactly what we desire when we refuse to forgive somebody. We want, we seek, we desire, we plan, and sometimes carry out revenge. James Brown wrote a song in 1973. Y'all already know the name of it. The Payback. He said, got to pay back. He said, revenge. I'm mad. Got to get back. I need some get back. Payback. Payback. Revenge. I'm mad. Y'all know the song. A lot of us are suffering with James Brown syndrome because we want some payback. Got to get back. We won't forgive until the debt is paid in full, and we alone determine the acceptable compensation. And unadmittedly, we set ourselves up to be the judges, even though we know that the Bible speaks against this, because in James 4:12 it says that there is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. And then it asks the question, who are you to judge one another? So God is the judge. And he will repay according to righteousness. Now, Jesus has paid it all and forgiven all. So when wrong is done to us, we must remember, listen, when wrong is done to us, we must remember the wrong that we've done to God in Christ, who knew no wrong or did no wrong, but yet he became the living sacrifice. He became the Redeemer. He paid our sin debt. And when justice demanded that we be found guilty, mercy stepped in. See, mercy keeps you from getting what you deserve. And grace gives you what you don't deserve. You don't deserve it, but grace gives it to you anyway. And then when justice demands that you pay for your sin, pay for your actions, mercy steps in and says, no, don't do it. Now, even though you may not have done anything to provoke the wrong done to you by another, contrast what was done to you with what you've been forgiven of, and you'll quickly see that there's no comparison. Don't just conveniently forget that mercy was meted out to you. The author talked about no gray areas. And in the Old Testament, or the Old Covenant, there was a law for reciprocity. When you were wrong, there was an eye for an eye. It says that in Leviticus 24. It says, if a man causes disfigurement of his neighbor, as he has done, so shall it be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he has caused disfigurement of a man, so shall it be done to him. That's the Old Testament. Eye for an eye. You break my window, I break your window. You stumble, you push me in, I fall, I hurt my arm, I break my arm, your arm has to get broken. Aren't you glad you don't live in the old covenant, under the old covenant? I told the class on Wednesday, sometimes I think we should. That's why I'm not a judge. I'm a preacher. I can't be no judge. Boy, if I was a judge, it would be if I was a judge. I only say that because some stuff that people do to children and do to elderly people, and senior people and defenseless folk, I was like, nah, he ain't got served. Just forget all that time. What did he do to you? Whatever he or she did to you, go do that to them. But that's why I'm a preacher and not a judge. But I feel that way sometimes. Some of the things that people do to folks, and then they want to just put them in jail. No, he beat him down. Somebody, a bunch of y'all go beat him down. Beat him down. So he'll know what that's like. So thank God for the new covenant. Thank God I'm not downtown in the circuit court or the federal court, because Jesus changed it. He changed all of that. Because when he was in his life and time of Jesus' ministry, they were living under the old covenant, the eye for an eye, the tooth for a tooth, disfigurement for a disfigurement. But in Matthew 5:38, Jesus, he changed it. He said to them, you've heard that it was said an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. He says, but I tell you not to resist an evil person. Whoever slaps you on your right cheek, I knew I was going to have trouble with this here. But whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn him. I'm not saying this. This Jesus said, turn the other to him also. I'm going to help you all today. I hear somebody over here, I ain't Jesus. I ain't Jesus. Yeah. I'm going to help you, though. I'm going to help you to become more like Jesus. More like him. So, what Jesus is doing is that, and then it goes on, it says, but I tell you not to resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your coat. And whoever compels you to go a mile, go with him 2 miles. And whoever and give to him who asks of you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, don't turn away. Okay. So what Jesus is doing is that he's eliminating what the author called gray areas, and says that our attitudes should be so far removed from avenging ourselves that we willingly open up ourselves to be taken advantage of again. You don't know about that, huh? This is what the Bible says. You know, this is what the Bible says. Now, you got to get it together. Because what he's teaching is on how Christians should treat those who wrong them. Whoever slaps you on the right cheek, that's what the text says, turn the other to him also. Now, Wednesday night, I had to do a little demonstration. I didn't slap anybody, nor did I get slapped. But I need to do a demonstration so you can understand it, because you're reading the text and you miss the key word in that passage is when he said, but whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn to him the other. Now, how are you going to get slapped? He didn't say just slap you. He said whoever slaps you on your right cheek. All right? So, in order to slap me on my right cheek, let me show you. Come here, Mario, come here. Now, I want y'all to see it, understand it. I'm going somewhere. Now, very good, I like that, yeah. Now, to slap Mario on his right cheek, like this, but I don't get any, I can't hit him like that. To slap Mario on his right cheek means I have to. Right? If he's going to slap me on my right cheek, he has to backhand me with this hand. Want to be one of my deacons? That's how you hit me on my right cheek. You got to backhand me. And to use the backhand to strike a person is always, in any culture, viewed to be an insult. To backhand me? That's insulting. And so, to be backhanded means that somebody is showing contempt for you. And what Jesus is he's clearly making is that the believer is not to retaliate against the most terrible insults. And you're not to retaliate against or a bitter contempt. When someone insults you, that's on the right cheek. He's saying that you have to exercise Christian conduct and not retaliate. Because all that was in you, got to get back, right? I'm not going to let them insult me. I'm not going to let you disrespect me. I'm not going to let you slight me. Jesus said, oh, yes, you will. Because you walk on a higher plane, you walk on a different plane than community. You march, and your cadence is different than that of the world. And something within holdeth the reins when you want to get back, because our proclivity is to respond to that. Now, I'm not going to let you disrespect me. I'm not going to let you insult me like that. But Jesus said, oh, yes, you will. See, because now turning the other cheek is difficult. It's difficult. And we use the term, when someone does something to us, we say it metaphorically, that was a what? A slap in the what? That was a slap in the face. That meant it was really insulting. That idiom means that it was contemptible, what you did to me. That was a slap in the face for you to do that to me. That was a slap in the face for you to say that about me. That was a slap in the face. And whether that slap comes by an insult, a slight, a criticism, a rumor, abuse, or a threat, Jesus says, turn the other cheek, which means that you don't challenge it, and you don't resent it, you don't avenge yourself, you don't retaliate, you don't enter into action, legal action against the attacker. That takes a whole lot of Jesus. That takes a whole lot of agape love to be able to do that. Yeah. So even though you may not be like Jesus, whichever one of y'all said that, I ain't like Jesus, got to start trying to be more like him. Because if not, then you are stuck and stalled, and you're the one that is stunted. He points out that is when it's our right to dignity, and our dignity is attacked, we are not to retaliate. Because it's not only our dignity, I'm going to add, it's our pride too. It's our pride. You don't talk to me like that. I'm a man. You don't say that to me. I don't know who she thinks she's talking to. I ain't nobody's child. You know, however you want to frame it. But it's insulting your dignity. But that ain't all that he said. He said, if anybody wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. And maybe the simplest way to apply this verse is to know that sometimes recovering or fighting for some property cost, for your property, it can cost you more than just giving it up and purchasing more. In the text, see, the tunic is what they wore underneath. But the coat, everybody had a coat. Even the poorest people had this outer coat. And the law said if you took somebody I could take your coat as a way to pay me. If you owed me something, I'd take your coat. And your coat you use to stay warm and for a blanket at night. And so to take that from a person is to take what they really need. And so Jesus said, if they ask you for your tunic, if they ask you for the undergarment, for your shirt, just give them that and give them your outer garment. And I guess maybe I could say that if sometimes in life you can be adjudged guilty in what you believe is unfair or unlawful suit or judgment against you, and what Jesus is saying, just pay the restitution and let it go and move on. He kept pushing in that passage. He said, whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. And that was real applicable to those people in time of the text, because they were under, it was a Roman occupation. And so being considered, second-class people, and they were an oppressed people because of the Roman occupation, then, a Roman soldier, or they could demand that you go with them, that you carry their burden. I got my stuff, I got all my groceries, or whatever I got. I can say, hey, come here. Remember Simon the Syrian? Remember when Jesus was carrying the cross up the Via Dolorosa, and the soldier said, hey, you, get here. Come carry this. He couldn't refuse. They had that type of power. Because the Jews were a subjugated people, so contextually teaching for them was to conform even though, and conform, and then even go beyond what they're demanding of you. In application, it means that when given an unfair task in life, that we are to perform it, and even then some. You give me an unfair task, typically when you get an unfair task, you have to do it. As a way of passive-aggressive, being passive-aggressive, you kind of have to do it. I shouldn't be doing it. It ain't my job. I don't know why you giving me somebody else's work, man. I've been here since, what's the time, man? Well, he ain't doing nothing. Look at him over there. We go through all of that. Jesus is saying, do it, and then do it and do some with it. Not only satisfy what's been asked of you, but go a little further.